Captain Veltar stood on the bridge of the Harmony's edge, watching the stars grow thin ahead of them. His blue skin had turned pale with worry. They were at the very edge of known space, where the galaxy ended and empty darkness began. This was the last mission to complete the Galactic Atlas. After this, every star system would be mapped and catalogued. "Captain, we're getting strange readings," said Dr. Kaiwu Park from his station. He was one of only 3 humans on the ship. The rest of the crew came from different alien races across the Confederation. Kiwu stared at his screen with confusion. There shouldn't be anything out here. Veltar walked over to look at the data. The sensors showed metal structures floating in the void beyond the galaxy's edge. This was impossible. No one lived in the empty space between galaxies. There was nothing there to support life. "Run the scan again," Veltar ordered. His long fingers drummed nervously on the console. "Maybe the equipment is broken." Kiwu ran the scan 3 more times. Each time the results were the same. Large, artificial structures sat in the darkness, orbiting rogue planets that drifted alone in the void. The structures were huge, bigger than any space station the Confederation had ever built. "Should we report this to command?" asked the ship's second officer, a reptilian Serani named Kesrick. Veltar thought for a moment. "No. We investigate first. If we report structures that turn out to be sensor ghosts, we'll look like fools. Take us closer but slowly." The Harmony's edge moved toward the mysterious structures. As they got closer, more details became clear. The stations were not just big. They were ancient. The metal looked old but well-maintained. Strange energy readings came from within. "Captain," Kiwu said, his voice tight with excitement, "I'm detecting life signs. Lots of them. These stations are inhabited." "By who?" Veltar asked. "No species in the galaxy has the technology to build stations this far out." They approached the largest station. It was shaped like a massive ring, slowly spinning to create artificial gravity. Docking ports lined its outer edge, and lights glowed in windows across its surface. Someone was definitely living there. A communication signal reached their ship. A woman's voice spoke in perfect galactic standard. "Unknown vessel, this is New Horizon Station Control. Please identify yourself." Veltar took the communication. "This is Captain Veltar of the Confederation survey ship Harmony's Edge. We're conducting a mapping mission. We didn't know anyone lived out here." There was a long pause. Then the voice replied, "We know who you are, Captain. We've been watching your approach for days. You may dock at Port 7. Administrator Yoon will meet you." The crew exchanged worried glances. How had these people been watching them? Their ship had the best stealth technology in the Confederation fleet. They docked at the station without trouble. The docking bay looked normal enough, with standard gravity and atmosphere controls. But the technology was different somehow. The metal was smoother and the energy patterns were unlike anything Kiwu had seen before. A woman waited for them at the airlock. She was human, with black hair and dark eyes. She looked to be in her 30s, but something about her seemed much older. She wore simple clothes that looked both practical and elegant. "I'm Jin Yoon, Station Administrator," she said with a slight bow. "Welcome to New Horizon Station." Kiwu stepped forward. "I'm Dr. Park, the expedition's xenobiologist. Are you human?" Jinne smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Yes, Dr. Park. We're all human here, though I suspect we're not quite what you expect." She led them through corridors that hummed with hidden power. The station was beautiful and clean, with gardens growing under artificial suns. Thousands of people moved through the passages, all of them human. They looked healthy and content, but they watched the visitors with careful eyes. "How long have you been living out here?" Veltar asked as they walked. "Longer than your Confederation has existed," Jinne replied. "We've been here since before most of the galaxy was settled. This was impossible. Humans had only achieved space travel a few thousand years ago. They were one of the newer species in the Confederation. How could these humans have been living in deep space for so long?" They reached Jinne's office, which had a large window looking out into space. Other stations could be seen in the distance, connected by streams of light that carried ships between them. This wasn't just one station. It was an entire civilization. "You have questions," Jin'ei said, settling behind her desk. "I can see it in your faces. Especially yours, Dr. Park. You're wondering how we got here, how we've survived, and why we're not in the galactic records." Kiwoo nodded. "Those are good questions to start with." Jin'ei looked out the window for a long moment. "The truth is complicated and dangerous. Your people aren't ready for it." "Try us," Veltar said firmly. "Very well. But understand that once you know, you can't unknow it." Jin'ei turned back to them. "We didn't come from the galaxy, Captain. We came from beyond it. We've been watching the galaxy develop for millions of years. We've been watching you." The room fell silent. Kiwoo felt his heart racing. "Watching us do what?" "Grow, learn. Make the same mistakes every species makes when they first reach the stars. We've guided you when we could, protected you when we had to." Ginny's expression grew sad. "We hoped you would develop differently, that maybe you would be the ones to break the pattern." "What pattern?" Veltar demanded. Ginny stood and walked to the window. "Every species that achieves interstellar travel faces the same test. Most fail. Those that fail are consumed. We've been trying to make sure the galaxy species pass the test when it comes." "What test?" Kiwoo asked, though he was afraid of the answer. Jin'ei pressed her hand against the window. Far in the distance, past the other station, something moved in the darkness. Something vast and hungry. "The test of survival," she said quietly. "Because something is coming from the deep dark. Something that eats entire galaxies. And when it arrives, every species in your confederation will need to fight together, or they'll all die together." She turned back to them, and her eyes held the weight of ages. "You should not have come here, Captain. Some boundaries exist for everyone's protection. But now that you're here, you need to understand the truth about your galaxy, about us, and about what's waiting in the dark between the stars." Outside the window, the darkness seemed to press closer, as if it had heard her words, and was eager to prove them true. Against Jin'ei's warnings, Captain Veltar insisted they explore more of the human settlements. The Harmony's Edge followed a guide ship deeper into the void, where more stations appeared like islands of light in an ocean of darkness. Each one was different. Some were cities built inside hollowed asteroids. Others were massive ships that could hold millions of people. Dr. Kiwoo couldn't stop staring at the energy readings. The humans were somehow pulling power directly from empty space itself. It was technology beyond anything the Confederation had ever dreamed of. The dark matter between galaxies was being converted into usable energy, allowing these settlements to exist where nothing should be able to survive. Their guide brought them to a military station called Deep Watch. Commander Hyunwoo Lee met them at the docking bay. He was a tall man with graying hair and tired eyes that seemed to have seen too much. Unlike Ginny, he wore a uniform that looked practical and worn. "Dr. Park," Hyunwoo said, shaking Kiwoo's hand. "Ginny told me you have questions about our history. I'm authorized to tell you the truth. All of it." He led them to a secure briefing room deep inside the station. The walls were covered with star maps that showed not just their galaxy, but dozens of others scattered across the visible universe. Red markers indicated something on many of them. "First, you need to understand that humanity didn't start in your galaxy," Hyunwoo began. "We came from somewhere else a long time ago. We've been traveling between galaxies for millions of years." Veltar's translator device struggled with some of the words. The concept of intergalactic travel was so advanced that the Confederation languages didn't have proper terms for it. "But how?" Kiwoo asked. "Humans in the Confederation barely achieved faster than light travel a few thousand years ago." Hyunwoo smiled sadly. "Those humans are our descendants, Dr. Park. Long ago, some of our people chose to settle in the galaxy and live normal lives among other species. We altered their memories so they could integrate peacefully. They forgot their origins and started over." The revelation hit Kiwoo like a physical blow. Everything he thought he knew about human history was wrong. Why would you do that? Because someone had to watch, someone had to guide, and someone had to be ready. Hyunwoo touched a control and the star maps changed. Look at these galaxies, Dr. Park. Each red marker shows a dead civilization. Each one reached the stars, grew powerful, and then destroyed itself or was destroyed. The maps showed hundreds of red markers. Entire galaxies full of dead worlds. The pattern is always the same, Hyunwoo continued. Species achieve interstellar travel. They fight wars over resources and territory. They develop dangerous technologies. And then something happens that wipes them out. War, plague, environmental collapse, or something worse. But our galaxy is different, Veltar protested. We have the Confederation. We have peace. You have peace because we gave it to you, Hyunwoo said bluntly. Every major conflict in galactic history was managed by us. Wars that could have destroyed entire species were quietly ended. Weapons that could crack planets were never invented because we made sure the research failed. Leaders who would have caused genocides died of convenient accidents. Kiwoo felt sick. You've been manipulating us for thousands of years? We've been protecting you. There's a difference. Hyunwoo brought up new images. The Zaraki Empire would have enslaved half the galaxy if we hadn't introduced a plague that only affected their military caste. The hegemony wars would have lasted centuries and killed billions if we hadn't assassinated 3 key generals and replaced them with more reasonable people. The room was silent except for the hum of the station's systems. Veltar looked like he wanted to be sick. You're talking about murder, about destroying the free will of entire civilizations. Yes, Hyunwoo said simply. We are because the alternative is extinction. Every single time, he gestured to the red markers on the galaxy maps. We've watched this happen over and over. Species reach the stars and think they're masters of the universe. They make the same mistakes, develop the same dangerous technologies, and attract the same fate. What fate? Kiwoo asked, though he dreaded the answer. Hyunwoo led them to another room, this one filled with massive computers and screens showing deep space. The displays tracked objects moving in the darkness between galaxies, objects that were clearly artificial but impossibly large. Something lives in the deep dark between galaxies, Hyunwoo explained. We call it the hunger. It feeds on the energy of living worlds, converting matter into something else. It's drawn to civilizations that develop certain types of technology. One of the screens showed a time-lapse image of a galaxy being consumed. The stars went out one by one as something invisible passed through the galaxy, leaving only empty space behind. This is what happened to our original home, Hyunwoo said quietly. We were the only ones who escaped. We've been running from it ever since, trying to stay ahead of it, trying to prepare other civilizations for what's coming. Kiwoo stared at the images in horror. How long do we have? Not long enough. Our long-range sensors show the hunger has found your galaxy. It's already started moving this way. We estimate maybe 50 years before it arrives. 50 years? Veltar's voice cracked. That's not enough time to evacuate billions of people. We're not planning to evacuate, Hyunwoo said grimly. We're planning to fight. For the first time in millions of years, we think we might have a chance to win, but only if every species in the galaxy works together. Only if they use technology we've kept hidden from them. He showed them images of human weapons that seemed to bend space itself, ships that could exist in multiple dimensions at once, and energy sources that drew power from the fabric of reality. This is why we've been guiding galactic development. This is why we've prevented certain research and encouraged other kinds. We've been preparing your species for a war they don't even know is coming. Kiwoo looked at the screen showing the approaching hunger, and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's temperature. What if we can't win? Hyunwoo was quiet for a long moment. Then at least this galaxy will die fighting instead of falling apart from within. That's more than most manage. The commander turned off the displays and faced them directly. Now you know the truth. The question is, what are you going to do with it? Will you help us prepare your people for what's coming, or will you try to expose us and destroy the only chance the galaxy has? Captain Veltar looked at Kiwoo, then back at Hyunwoo. The weight of the decision showed on his face. Everything they thought they knew about their history, their achievements, their place in the universe, all of it was built on lies. But those lies might be the only thing standing between them and extinction. Outside the station, the darkness pressed closer, carrying with it something vast and hungry that had already begun its journey toward their galaxy. The Harmony's edge followed a massive convoy of human ships toward their hidden capital. New Horizon Station was not just a space station. It was a mobile city the size of a small moon. drifting in the void between the Milky Way and Andromeda galaxies. As they approached, Kiwoo could see other fleets arriving from different directions. This was clearly a gathering of some importance. Chairman Dong-hyun Kim met them at the main docking bay. He was an elderly man with white hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. Beside him stood Counselor So-young Choi, a woman in her middle years who carried herself with the authority of someone used to making life-and-death decisions for billions of people. Dr. Park. Captain Veltar, Chairman Kim said in greeting. Welcome to the heart of human operations. I'm sorry you had to learn about us this way, but circumstances have forced our hand. They were escorted through corridors that stretched for kilometers. The station held millions of humans, all working on projects that seemed to span multiple galaxies. Kiwoo saw war rooms where battles were planned across star clusters, research labs where scientists worked with technologies that shouldn't exist, and communication centers that somehow maintained contact with agents scattered across the known universe. How many of you are there? Veltar asked as they walked. More than you might think, fewer than we need, Counselor Choi replied. We have active operations in 43 galaxies. Each one requires thousands of agents, researchers, and support staff. They reached the Central Command Center, a vast chamber with a dome that showed a real-time map of local galactic cluster. Dozens of galaxies spun slowly in the display, each marked with different colors that indicated their status. Most were green, meaning they were developing normally under human guidance. A few were red, indicating they had failed and been consumed by the hunger. Several were yellow, meaning they were approaching the critical point where they would either unite or destroy themselves. This is the scope of our operation, Chairman Kim explained. We don't just watch one galaxy. We watch all of them. We guide their development, prevent their worst impulses, and prepare them for the test that every civilization must eventually face. Kiwoo felt overwhelmed by the scale of it. How is this possible? How can you manage so many civilizations at once? Very carefully and with great cost, Counselor Choi said. She led them to a historical archive that contained records going back millions of years. Let me show you how we've guided your galaxy's development. The archives were horrifying in their detail. Every major event in galactic history had been influenced or controlled by human agents. The formation of the Confederation itself had been orchestrated by human diplomats working behind the scenes. Trade routes that seemed to develop naturally had been carefully planned to prevent certain species from becoming too powerful. Even technological breakthroughs that appeared to be discoveries were actually the result of human scientists sharing knowledge at precisely the right moments. The Zaraki Empire. Counselor Choi brought up one file. They were expanding too quickly and enslaving other species. We introduced a genetic virus that only affected their military breeding programs. Within 3 generations, their warrior caste was too weak to maintain their conquests. The Great Plague of Sector 7. She showed them another file. It wasn't natural. We released it to prevent the hegemony from developing a weapon that could destroy stars. Better to sacrifice one star system than lose entire sectors. Kiwoo stared at the records in growing horror. You killed billions of people. To save trillions, Chairman Kim said sadly. Every choice we make is between terrible options. We've learned that civilizations cannot be allowed to develop freely. Left alone, they always destroy themselves or become threats to everyone else. But what about free will? Veltar demanded. What about the right of species to make their own choices? Free will is a luxury that only exists when the choices don't affect the survival of the universe. Counselor Choi replied bluntly. When your choices could result in the extinction of all life, then yes, we interfere. She brought up new files that showed Kiwoo's own history. His education, his career choices, even his assignment to the Harmony's Edge, all of it had been influenced by human agents. You wanted us to find you, Kiwoo realized. My being on this ship, us coming to the edge of the galaxy, none of it was coincidence. No, Chairman Kim confirmed. We need the Confederation to know about us now. The hunger is approaching, and we can't fight it while remaining hidden. But we needed to control how the revelation happened. We needed the right people to learn the truth first. They were taken to a quantum telescope array that could observe events across intergalactic distances. The images it showed made Kiwoo's blood run cold. The hunger was not just one entity. It was a swarm of massive constructs, each one the size of a solar system. They moved through space like living creatures. consuming everything in their path and converting matter into some form of energy that fed their growth. This is what destroyed our original galaxy, Chairman Kim explained. We barely escaped with a few million people. Everything else, billions of worlds, trillions of lives, was consumed. How do we fight something like that? Veltar asked. Together or not at all, Counselor Choi said. Every species in your galaxy will need to put aside their differences and work as one. They'll need to accept technologies that we've kept hidden from them, and they'll need to trust us to lead the defense. The scope of human manipulation became clear. The Confederation's military structure, their industrial capacity, even their population distributions had all been shaped to optimize resistance against the hunger. Species that were too aggressive had been subtly weakened. Those that were too peaceful had been given hidden military technologies. Everything had been prepared for a war that the galaxy didn't know was coming. Some of our people think we should just let the galaxy fall, Chairman Kim admitted. They argue that we've done this dozens of times before and it always ends the same way. The hunger consumes everything, and we move on to seed the next galaxy with guided civilizations. But you're going to fight anyway, Kiwoo said. Yes, because maybe this time will be different. Maybe your galaxy can succeed where others have failed. Maybe the sacrifices we've made, the freedoms we've taken away will finally be worth it. The conversation was interrupted by an alarm. Red lights flashed throughout the command center as technicians rushed to their stations. A massive display showed the edge of their galaxy, where something impossible was happening. Long-range sensors are detecting massive gravitational distortions, a technician reported. The Hunger's advanced scouts have arrived. They're already beginning to consume the outer rim systems. The room fell silent except for the sound of the alarms. On the display, entire star systems were going dark as something invisible passed through them. The invasion had begun 50 years ahead of schedule. Chairman Kim turned to Kiwoo and Veltar with grim determination. It's time to contact your Confederation, gentlemen. Tell them the truth about us, about what's coming, and about what they'll need to do if they want to survive. The age of secrets is over. On the screens around them, more stars disappeared into darkness as the Hunger began its feast. The war for the galaxy's survival had already begun. The Confederation Council chambers on the capital world of Nexus Prime had never seen such chaos. Representatives from hundreds of species argued, shouted, and demanded answers as Captain Veltar's report spread through the galactic government. The revelation that humanity had been secretly controlling galactic civilization for thousands of years had shattered everything they thought they knew about their history. Dr. Kaiwu stood before the council, trying to explain what they had discovered. Some species accused humans of being cosmic tyrants. Others praised them as saviors who had prevented countless wars. Most were simply terrified by the approaching threat of the Hunger. You're asking us to trust the very people who have been lying to us for millennia, declared Representative Casmore of the Thrakari Union. His reptilian features showed his anger clearly. How do we know this isn't just another manipulation? Because the alternative is extinction, Kiwoo replied. I've seen the evidence. The Hunger is real, and it's already started consuming our outer rim systems. While the council argued, the human watchers began their most ambitious project ever. Admiral Jae-min Kwan commanded hidden fleets that emerged from the void, revealing technologies that seemed like magic to Confederation forces. Ships that could phase in and out of normal space, weapons that drew power from dark matter, and shields that bent the laws of physics. Strategic Coordinator Hye-jin Nam worked around the clock to integrate Confederation forces with human technology. The process was difficult and dangerous. Alien physiology wasn't compatible with most human systems. Several test pilots died when their minds couldn't handle the mental link required to control dark matter weapons. Kiwoo served as a liaison between the humans and the increasingly panicked Confederation leadership. Each day brought new revelations about the extent of human influence. Archaeological teams found evidence of human intervention in ancient sites across the galaxy. Geneticists discovered that several species had been subtly guided in their evolution. Even the Confederation's computer networks contained hidden human code that had been quietly influencing decisions for centuries. My entire life has been a lie, Captain Veltar said during one of their private conversations. His faith in everything he had believed was crumbling. My career, my achievements, even my thoughts, how much of it was really my own choice? Kiwu didn't have good answers. He was struggling with the same questions. The revelation that his assignment to the Harmony's Edge had been orchestrated made him wonder if any of his choices had been truly free. The psychological impact on different species varied wildly. Some, like the logical Volcari, adapted quickly to the new reality and focused on practical preparations for the coming war. Others, like the deeply spiritual Keth, suffered massive social breakdown as their religious beliefs collapsed under the weight of evidence that their gods were actually human. Agents. Dr. Kiwu learned more disturbing truths when Hyojin showed him the real cost of humanity's dark matter technology. Each use of their advanced weapons caused tiny tears in the fabric of space-time. Over millions of years, these tears were slowly accelerating the heat death of the universe. We're killing reality itself to maintain our watch, Hyojin explained in her private lab deep inside New Horizons Station. Every battle we fight, every civilization we save, we're trading the long-term survival of the universe for short-term preservation of life. The calculations were terrifying. If humanity continued using dark matter technology at current rates, the universe would die billions of years earlier than it should. They were essentially stealing time from the future to save the present. Why continue then? Kiwu asked. If you're dooming the universe anyway, why not just give up? Because a shorter universe with life is better than a longer universe that's empty, Hyojin replied. And because maybe, just maybe, we'll find a solution before it's too late. She showed him historical records that revealed humanity's darkest secret. Earth wasn't humanity's first home. It was their refuge after their original galaxy was consumed by the hunger. Humanity itself was a refugee species, the sole survivors of a galactic civilization that had failed to unite in time. The knowledge that they were essentially repeating the same cycle of failure over and over drove some humans to madness. Extremist factions had formed within human society. Some believed the fight was hopeless and advocated for controlled extinction rather than absorption by the hunger. Others wanted to abandon the galaxy and flee to another one, leaving the Confederation to face the hunger alone. The stress of maintaining their secret watch for millions of years had created deep fractures in human civilization. Meanwhile, the Confederation species were discovering the full extent of human manipulation in their histories. The Ashani found evidence that their greatest poets had been inspired by human muses. The Zoraki discovered that their most revered military strategies had been taught to them by human advisors. The hegemony learned that their technological breakthroughs had been gifts from human scientists. Nothing we achieved was our own, cried Representative Thesara of the Ashani Republic during one council session. Our art, our science, our culture, all of it was guided by alien hands. What are we without their influence? Who are we really? The revelation pushed several species to the brink of civil war. Some wanted to embrace humanity as benevolent guardians. Others demanded violent resistance against their cosmic manipulators. A few simply gave up entirely, falling into despair at the meaninglessness of their accomplishments. Captain Veltar suffered his own crisis when ship technicians discovered that even the Harmony's Edge's AI had human-derived code. The artificial intelligence that had guided them on their mission contained subtle programming designed to influence decision-making in crisis situations. Even our ship was compromised, Veltar told Kaiwu bitterly. How can we trust our own thoughts when we don't know what else they've altered? The crisis deepened when long-range sensors detected the hunger's main force approaching the galaxy's core systems. The advanced scouts had been devastating enough, consuming entire star systems and converting them into energy to fuel the main invasion. But the approaching fleet was beyond comprehension. Thousands of constructs, each one capable of draining the energy from an entire star. Traditional weapons proved useless against the hunger's scouts. Conventional missiles and energy beams passed through them without effect. Only human dark matter weapons could harm them, but each successful attack sent signals that helped the hunger locate and target human positions. The first major battle occurred in the Outer Veil, where a combined human Confederation fleet tried to stop a hunger scout from consuming the industrial world of Keth Prime. The battle was a nightmare of impossible physics and desperate sacrifice. Ships phased in and out of dimensions, weapons tore holes in space-time, and brave crews flew suicide missions into constructs the size of moons. They won, but barely. The cost was enormous. 3/4 of the fleet was destroyed, and the survivors reported that their dark matter weapons seemed to have alerted something vast and intelligent to their presence. "It's learning," Admiral Jamin reported after the battle. "Each engagement teaches it more about our capabilities. It's adapting to our weapons and tactics faster than we can develop new ones." Dr. Kiwu stood in the ruins of Keth Prime's orbital stations, looking at the devastation the hunger had caused in just a few hours. Entire cities had been drained of energy, leaving behind empty shells that crumbled to dust at the slightest touch. Billions of people had simply ceased to exist, their life force converted into fuel for the hunger's growth. "How many more battles like this can we win?" he asked Admiral Jamin. The Admiral's expression was grim. "Not enough. At this rate, we'll run out of ships and crews long before we run out of enemies. We need a different strategy, or this galaxy will join all the others in the hunger's collection." As they spoke, more emergency signals came in from across the galaxy. The hunger wasn't just approaching, it was accelerating, drawn by the energy signatures of the dark matter weapons that were the only things capable of harming it. Humanity's greatest strength was also their greatest weakness, leading their enemies directly to them like a beacon in the dark. The hunger's arrival at the galaxy's inner systems forced humanity to abandon all pretense of secrecy. Commander Bo-Ra Shin took direct command of combined human and Confederation fleets, openly deploying technologies that had been hidden for millions of years. The sight of human ships materializing from higher dimensions shocked even their allies. But there was no time for gentle revelations anymore. Dr. Kiwu worked alongside Chief Scientist Min Ho Jiang in desperate attempts to adapt human technology for use by other species. The process was proving nearly impossible. Alien nervous systems couldn't interface safely with dark matter control systems. Several volunteers from different species had died horribly when their minds couldn't handle the quantum feedback from the weapons. "It's not just a matter of biology," Minho explained as they watched another failed test. "Our technology requires a specific type of consciousness that seems to be unique to humans. Other species think differently at a fundamental level. They can't make the mental connections needed to control dark matter." The battles grew more desperate as the hunger consumed system after system. Each engagement revealed new horrors. The constructs weren't just feeding on matter and energy, they were learning. They adapted to every tactic, countered every strategy, and grew stronger with each victory. Captain Veltar commanded a mixed fleet in the defense of the Nexus system, where the Confederation's capital world sat helpless before an approaching wave of hunger constructs. His ship, the Harmony's Edge, had been retrofitted with human weapons, but the alien crew couldn't operate them effectively. "Fire everything we have," Veltar ordered as massive shadow constructs descended on their fleet. The human weapons fired, tearing brilliant holes in space-time, but the constructs simply flowed around the damage like living darkness. Kiwu watched the battle from the surface of Nexus Prime, where evacuation ships struggled to carry refugees to safety. But where could they go? Every star system in the galaxy was under threat. The hunger was consuming everything, converting entire worlds into energy to fuel its endless expansion. In the ruins of an ancient research station on the galaxy's edge, Kiwu made a discovery that changed everything. While searching through pre-war human archives, he found records from humanity's original galaxy, the one that had been consumed millions of years ago. The files were encrypted with quantum locks that required human DNA to open. When Kiwu finally accessed them, he found the final research notes of a scientist named Dr. Lee Sujin, who had studied the hunger in the last days before their galaxy fell. "The hunger isn't malevolent," her final entry read. "It's a maintenance system, created by the previous universe's inhabitants to prevent dark matter cascade failures. Our technology is slowly unraveling the fabric of space-time. The hunger is trying to stop us before we trigger a universal collapse that would destroy everything." Kiwu stared at the screen in horror. The humans weren't fighting an invader. They were fighting the universe's immune system. Every dark matter weapon they fired, every quantum tear they created was bringing reality closer to total collapse. The hunger was trying to save the universe by eliminating the species that was accidentally destroying it. He transmitted his discovery to Admiral Taeho Bay, who commanded the main human fleet from the mobile fortress Eternal Watch. The Admiral's response came back within hours. "Confirmed. Our long-range sensors show quantum instability spreading throughout local spacetime. Each battle is making it worse. The terrible mathematics became clear. Humanity could probably defeat the hunger if they used enough dark matter weapons, but doing so would guarantee the collapse of the entire universe within 1 billion years. Or they could surrender their technology and accept extinction, preserving reality for future civilizations. The choice split humanity into bitter factions. Some demanded they fight regardless of the consequences. Better a universe that dies fighting than one that submits to cosmic tyranny, declared Admiral Bora during one heated council session. Others argued for surrender. We've already failed our duty as guardians of life, said Dr. Minho. If our existence threatens everything else, then our existence must end. The debate raged as the hunger closed in on the galaxy's core systems. Entire sectors went dark as the constructs consumed them. Refugee fleets fled toward the Galactic Center, carrying billions of survivors who had nowhere left to run. Dr. Kiwu found himself in the impossible position of advising both humans and aliens on a choice that would determine the fate of everything. In private moments with Captain Veltar, they discussed what it meant to fight for survival when survival itself might doom the universe. Maybe that's what makes humans different, Veltar said during one quiet conversation. Other species run from impossible choices. Humans make them anyway. The final decision came when Admiral Tejo Bay called a meeting of all human commanders and Confederation leaders. The assembled representatives gathered aboard Eternal Watch as the hunger's main force approached the Sol system itself, the symbolic heart of human presence in the galaxy. We have a choice, Admiral Tejo announced to the assembly. We can fight with everything we have, use all our dark matter weapons, all our quantum technologies, all our dimensional warfare capabilities. We'll probably win, but the victory will accelerate universal heat death by billions of years. He paused, looking at the faces around him. Humans who had carried the burden of protecting life for millions of years. Aliens who had just learned that their entire civilization was built on managed lies. Or we can choose sacrifice. We can use our remaining dark matter reserves not for weapons but for escape. We can open permanent rifts to distant universes, places where the surviving species can start over without the technologies that attract the hunger's attention. The debate was surprisingly brief. When it came to a vote, the decision was unanimous. Humanity chose sacrifice. The evacuation began immediately. Human ships worked around the clock to open stable rifts in spacetime, creating permanent gateways to distant universes where refugees could start new civilizations. The process required every remaining dark matter generator, leaving humanity defenseless against the approaching hunger. Dr. Kiwu worked with teams of volunteers to gather and preserve the essential knowledge that would help the refugees survive in their new homes. The Galactic Atlas was rewritten one final time, not as a map of territory, but as a guide to avoiding the mistakes that had doomed their universe. As the last refugee ships passed through the dimensional rifts, the hunger arrived at the galactic core. Kiwu stood on the bridge of Eternal Watch alongside Admiral Tejo and Captain Veltar, watching as the constructs approached their position. Any regrets? Veltar asked. Only that we didn't learn sooner, Admiral Tejo replied. Maybe if we'd understood what the hunger really was, we could have found another way. The constructs reached their ship and began the process of energy extraction. But instead of the violent consumption they had witnessed before, the process was almost gentle. The hunger was removing the dangerous technologies from their systems while leaving the life force intact. As his consciousness faded, Kaiwu's last act was to complete the final entry in the new Galactic Atlas. Here ends the galaxy that was. Here begins the hope for galaxies that might be. Remember us not as your shepherds, but as the warning that some knowledge comes with too high a price. Learn from our mistakes, build better, and if you must reach for the stars, do so without breaking the fabric of creation itself. The rifts sealed themselves as the last humans faded away, carrying with them the dangerous knowledge that had attracted the hunger. In distant universes, refugee ships carried millions of survivors toward new worlds where they could start over. This time, without cosmic guardians to guide their choices, the Galactic Atlas became humanity's final gift to the universe, a guide not just to stars and worlds, but to the choices that determine whether civilizations become protectors of life or harbingers of cosmic death. In the empty space where a galaxy once thrived, The hunger completed its work and returned to the void between realities, waiting for the next civilization to discover technologies too dangerous for any universe to contain.